The low rumble of diesel engines rolling through my street at 7 a.m. wasn't anything out of the ordinary for our coastal neighborhood. What was out of the ordinary, however, was watching two massive tow trucks creep directly into my driveway like they were approaching a hostile extraction zone. The operators jumped out and immediately began unloading chains, hooks, and wheel lifts with the urgency of men preparing for war. I set my mug of coffee on the porch railing, tugged the sleeves of my Coast Guard veteran sweatshirt, and stepped outside. 3 men were already circling my covered patrol vessel like scavengers preparing to feast. "Morning, gentlemen," I said evenly, though irritation was already rising in my chest. "Want to explain why you're standing on my property?" The lead driver, big guy, greasy coveralls that looked permanently stained, barely acknowledged me. "Orders from the HOA. We're here to remove this abandoned boat," he said in a flat monotone. "Paperwork says it's been parked here more than 30 days without moving." I almost burst out laughing. Abandoned? The 28-foot Coast Guard response boat sitting under the custom marine cover had only been on my property for 12 days, and it wasn't just any boat. It was federal equipment assigned to me for maintenance and inspection. "I'm going to suggest you stop right now," I said, pulling out my phone. "This is United States Coast Guard property, and I have every document needed to prove it." The driver just shrugged. "Lady who runs the HOA said it goes." That was when I hit record and dialed a number I'd hoped I'd never need. Minutes later, 3 black SUVs with government plates tore around the corner like a storm rolling in. Suddenly, the tow guys didn't look so bold. "My name is Jake Sullivan, and I've been in the Coast Guard for 15 years. 6 months ago, I moved into Pelican Bay. Quiet, clean, right by the water. Perfect." What I didn't know was that just 3 months before I showed up, the community elected a new HOA president, Karen Bellwether. And Karen believed she'd been crowned queen of the neighborhood, complete with divine authority to micromanage every lawn, driveway, and mailbox within her domain. The trouble started the moment I brought the patrol boat home for work purposes. As part of my job overseeing district fleet maintenance, I occasionally needed to keep vessels at approved locations for inspections. My property had been cleared by the Coast Guard with full security approval. I even went door to door introducing myself and explaining why a Coast Guard vessel would be parked there temporarily. Most neighbors were excited. The Johnsons brought their grandkids to look at it, and old Mr. Peterson, a Navy vet, saluted the boat every morning. But Karen? Karen saw the vessel as an insult to her meticulously crafted suburban universe, an eyesore, a rule violation, and most importantly, something she hadn't personally allowed. Her first notice showed up 3 days later, printed in Comic Sans, laminated for inexplicable reasons. It claimed the boat violated rules on recreational watercraft and commercial vehicles. I responded politely with federal paperwork showing the vessel was government property, and that federal law overrode HOA rules. She mailed back rejecting it. Her certified mail response dismissed my supposed federal documents and claimed HOA regulations were absolute within community limits. She had clearly never heard of federal supremacy laws. Trying to keep things calm, I invited her and 2 board members to inspect the vessel. She arrived with a clipboard, an attitude, and the kind of haircut that announces, "I need to speak to your manager," from half a mile away. "I don't care if this belongs to the Queen of England," she snapped. "It's ugly. It ruins property values. It has to go." I showed her the Coast Guard insignia, the federal placards, registration numbers, maintenance logs, and authorization from my commanding officer. She took photos of everything, not to understand, but to build whatever case she believed she had. "This is clearly a commercial vehicle," she declared, ignoring the giant U.S. Coast Guard markings. "And that tarp isn't an approved HOA color. It should be navy blue or forest green, not gray. It's a military-grade cover, I answered calmly. It protects sensitive equipment. Then it belongs on a military base, she barked. Not in my neighborhood. You have 7 days before you're fined, $50 a day. With respect, I said, you cannot fine me for storing U.S. government property I am legally required to maintain. She snorted. The HOA protects this community, Mr. Sullivan, not your little boat club. I contacted Coast Guard legal office. They confirmed I was in the right. I assumed it was over. I underestimated Karen. The fines began on day 7. $50 a day. Then false noise complaints. Then bogus rules about driveway coverage. Then claims the boat cover violated airspace regulations she had clearly invented. After 2 weeks, she said I owed over $2,000. She mailed letters to the entire community and posted pictures online with captions like, "Is this what our neighborhood is becoming?" Most residents ignored her. Some supported me, but Karen had stacked the board with loyalists. She ran meetings like a dictator holding a microphone hostage. She even created a special session dedicated to the boat problem. I arrived with a folder of documents and a Coast Guard legal representative, Lieutenant Commander Patricia Wells, an officer with zero tolerance for civilian interference. During public comments, she stood and addressed the room. Petty Officer Sullivan is performing authorized maintenance on a government vessel. Interfering may constitute a federal crime. I strongly recommend you rescind all fines and cease further harassment. Karen turned purple. This is a private HOA matter, she shouted. Wells responded, federal law supersedes HOA rules. Chaos erupted. Despite the warning, Karen forced through a resolution declaring the boat a nuisance and authorizing its removal. By any means necessary. She smirked at me. HOA rules override everything, Mr. Sullivan. That was Thursday. The following Tuesday, I came home from base inspections to find my driveway empty. The boat was gone. The cover was gone. Only the wheel chocks remained. My security cameras had been spray-painted over, but my neighbor's camera captured everything. Karen herself at 6 a.m., directing tow trucks with a clipboard, posing for selfies as they hauled away federal property. She had just committed multiple federal crimes. I contacted Coast Guard Investigative Service immediately. Within an hour, the base commander was involved. Within 2 hours, federal agents were already mobilizing. The vessel was found at a commercial tow yard 15 miles away, dumped behind a fence with a note to bill the HOA. The yard owner cooperated once agents arrived. He handed over everything, including the work order signed by Karen and paid with HOA funds. Agents went straight to the HOA office. Karen sat smugly at her desk, surrounded by her trophy photos. When federal agents entered in tactical vests, her face drained of color. "Karen Bellwether?" She nodded. "You're under investigation for theft of government property, interference with federal operations, and misuse of HOA funds," she argued. "I was enforcing community standards." The lead agent pulled out the documents I'd given her. "Ma'am, you ignored federal warnings and directed the removal of a vessel containing classified equipment." The investigation tore through the HOA. They found she used $8,000 of HOA money for the illegal tow. She issued fines without board approval. She pocketed portions of those fines. She threatened residents. The tow company damaged classified equipment worth tens of thousands. The board panicked. They revoked all fines against me, issued a formal apology, and several members resigned. Local news ran the story. The Coast Guard issued a statement. Karen became the poster child for insane HOA presidents. In court, she insisted HOA rules were supreme. The judge, a former Navy officer, was not amused. She faced charges including theft of federal property, destruction of government assets, interfering with military operations, misusing community funds, and more. After mountains of evidence, including her own selfies, she accepted a plea deal. 18 months in federal prison, $30,000 restitution, 5-year ban from HOA leadership. When the judge read the sentence, she fainted. The judge's final statement was perfect. HOA rules do not override federal law. Ever.